folks, welcome back to another reading. Today I'm taking a look at Billie Eilish, and I'm starting out with her astrological natal chart. So something I should note is that I believe that natal charts are an aspect of a person, that they can still make their own choices, and that some parts of their chart will apply to some people and not to others. If you think about there were probably a number of other babies born in the same area around the same time as Billie when she was born. So that makes sense that they would have very similar birth charts, if not almost exactly the same. Almost, okay? So in that particular case, there will be some things that resonate with some of those kids born around the same time, and they might not resonate with Billie Eilish. Just keep that in mind, okay? So with that in mind, let me just say that her birth chart is pretty intense, that this is something that I would associate with a pretty intense kind of individual. For instance, immediately I noticed that her zodiac signs, like you've got the ring around the astrological chart, right? One of them is the zodiac signs. They're all in alignment with their home houses, and I'm sorry if I'm stumbling, okay? We're still a Mercury retrograde. But for instance, Aries is in alignment with its home house of the first house, which is about self and how the public sees us and what we put on display and how open we are, that kind of thing. Taurus in her birth chart is also associated with his home house of, I keep wanting to say home sign, but it's home house of value, money, finances, possessions, what it is that we place value in. Gemini is in its home house of intellect and studying and planning and thinking and all that kind of good stuff. Also to do with language and communication. There's a lot that already suggests to me that any planets that might land in those areas are going to be intensified, because that's just a very powerful connection, okay? When each of the zodiac signs sits in its home house, that creates an alignment that just makes things more intense, for better and for worse, okay? So it will make trining and sextiling and opposing and conjunct relationships even more powerful, okay? And those are all relationships that make things rough or easy for us. Easier, anyway. As if that wasn't intense enough, she has two stelliums. One appears in her 9th house of journeys and exploration and higher education and travel, and the other one sits in her 11th house of social connections, like friends, acquaintances, the people that she kind of knows in the industry but isn't like friends with. It also has to do with fans, her fan groups, if you will. That's where the other stellium appears. There's even more intensity in this birth chart. This is a person who does not half-ass things, because it's just not something that she's built to do. With her ascendant in Aries, that's how the public sees her, as someone who's a go-getter, who's first in line, who's on the forefront of people's minds, right? That's how people perceive her. Additionally, her sun sign is in Sagittarius, which is about expansion. This is someone who was always going to tend to be in the limelight, even if there isn't necessarily much going on in her 10th house, and we can talk about that briefly, because there isn't, right? Her 10th house of influence, of fame, that kind of thing. There isn't much going on there, but the combination of the ascendant Aries and the sun sign in Sagittarius, this person was just kind of bound to be some degree of famous, okay? At least in her local community, if not in other places. Definitely her chart says that she is where she is for a reason, right? That's something that we can definitely appreciate in this context. Something else I noticed is that her Venus is in Sagittarius. Now, this is interesting. This can be a highly sexual energy, and I also noticed that it is sextiling the energy found in Uranus in Aquarius. So, she's going to want to expand her love life, and she might get into some interesting exploration when it comes to her romantic partnerships. She's definitely going to expect a lot out of her romantic partnerships, and I definitely feel like she's the kind of person to fall in love on the go because it arrives in her 9th house, okay? Now, this is interesting. She doesn't have anything really except her descendant sign going on in her 7th house, and that's in Libra, okay? So again, to do with relationships, she's someone who is highly oriented towards sex and romantic relationships. And something I should say is that I'm not someone who listens to her music. I actually have no idea what she sounds like when she's singing or speaking. I don't know very much about this person at all. I did the bare minimum amount of research so that I could kind of go into this as a fresh person, right? I was trying to go for as little bias as possible, okay? So this is a highly sexual, highly romantic person who expects a lot and who also changes quite a bit with that. Sagittarius is associated with Jupiter, okay? So that's going to be someone who is kind of the leader who might wear the pants in the relationship, and that can work out for better or for worse. With that sextiling energy with Uranus in Aquarius, she might discover how powerful she feels when she is more of the leader in a romantic relationship. And that's not to say that it can't be healthy, but she needs to be careful about being totally in charge and not listening to her partners and kind of having that center stage. Here's the thing, with all that really powerful fire energy, all the fire signs really don't mind, in fact, kind of love being in the public eye. That kind of lends itself to where she is in terms of her fame today. But it also kind of means that she doesn't mind being seen as the show off in the romantic relationship, or seen as the most public facing version of the relationship, okay? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it could create tension in the relationship depending on what her partner's astrological birth chart looks like, okay? So, as if that weren't enough with that stellium, she's got her Sun, her Venus, and Pluto together, okay? So this is interesting. With Pluto, that kind of suggests to me that she's going to tend towards older folks. Now, here comes Mercury with that 10th house in Capricorn. She's going to be able to communicate more easily with people who are older. That's just something that comes more naturally to her. Therefore, it's going to be in alignment with her being sexually and romantically attracted to people who are older than her. So I don't want to necessarily put death out there, but Pluto does have stuff to do with death and the ends of eras. And there might be transformations that she encounters in her romantic relationships that are deeply powerful and affect her on a fundamental level because her sun sign is so close to Pluto. You're going to see it. It's going to be in her music. It's going to be when she talks about it. She might do blogs or books, or there might be some kind of way that she communicates in a very public way because, again, she's got that Mercury in the 10th house. This might not come about until she's older, specifically not until after her Saturn return, because Capricorn is associated with Saturn, okay? By the way, Saturn lands in Gemini, so her Saturn return will be in Gemini, and it's going to affect how she communicates with the world, not just with herself, about herself, not just how she talks to herself, how she speaks lovingly, with kindness towards herself, ideally, okay? But also in how she speaks to others. So, there's going to be a lot that she's probably going to talk about when it comes to the transformations that she encounters with that Pluto. Pluto's going to be really intense because Sagittarius is associated with Jupiter. So not only does she have the planet of transformation in the ends of eras and also death, literally, physically, but also in the figurative sense as well, in the spiritual sense. There's a real possibility that she could go down a very intense spiritual path as a result of getting into a romantic relationship that transforms her on a very fundamental level, on all levels, in fact. Everybody's going to see this. It might be very public facing later when she's ready to talk about it, okay? Pluto can be a pretty intense planet, and sometimes you don't see necessarily what's going on until later on, okay? Excuse me. So the positive with these stelliums is that they have a sextiling relationship with each other. These guys flow well with each other, even if their relationship is intense, even if there's going to be some really powerful, even if her whole life just feels intense in general. And how many take a shot of water every time I say intense, okay? Stay hydrated, that kind of thing. Anyway, this is the positive part, is when you have this when she has this sextiling energy. That's going to feel like things just flow a little bit more easily. So it's kind of like the universe said, okay, kid, you're being born with a whole lot of intense energy in your birth chart. Let's make some things a little bit easier on you. That doesn't mean that her birth chart is the easiest thing in the world to have. And by the way, this is public information. This is in the astro.com like data bank or something like that. Everybody can look at this particular birth chart, okay? So let's talk about her. We finished her ninth house stellium. Let's talk about her 11th house stellium. This is where things get intense, especially in the context that we're currently in right now. So this stellium is in the 11th house, and that is in its home zodiac sign of Aquarius. Uranus is the planet, is in its home sign of zodiac, the house sign of the 11th house, and in the zodiac sign of of Aquarius. This is going to be like, she's someone who might get rid of friends pretty easily. Just let go of people and then suddenly acquire a whole new group of friends. And then one day she grows out of them and lets them suddenly go too. This is someone who ghosts people very easily. This could be a hot or cold kind of person. She could potentially be kind of difficult to live with if she isn't someone who is aware of this energy and who balances it out with grounding, who grounds herself. She doesn't have much in the way of earth energy. There's a lot of fire energy here. There's a lot of air energy in here. And that can be kind of cool if she's justice-minded, if she's heading towards her best and her highest good. She could be an incredibly powerful, genuinely incredible role model for a variety of people, regardless of how old she is. But sometimes this can be, and I'm speaking as someone who has a lot of fire and air energy in my own birth chart, sometimes it is so easy for me personally to think and do and not really pause and feel my way and ground myself through a process. And I'll find myself in situations where I don't want to back down because I have enough earth energy in my birth chart to be stubborn. But on the other hand, I got myself into this mess. I planned my way into this, and I did. It's not how it turned out. This is someone who might easily, impulsively flip into situations. And with that Journeys card, she might be someone who just takes off and goes traveling and doesn't let anybody know. Goes to meet a new boyfriend or some new boyfriend, girlfriend, new envy. I don't know who she dates, okay? But she just goes flying off, doesn't tell anybody. And it's just sudden, overnight. Not only is Uranus this is like cubed energy. Okay, like literally very powerful energy with Uranus, Aquarius in 11th house. But also her moon is sitting here conjunct together with Uranus, sitting in the zodiac sign of Aquarius in the house of the 11th house. So a deeply emotional person. She's someone who has very deep, possibly very sudden connections with people. She's someone who, if you make a connection with her, she makes you feel like you're very deep friends pretty quickly too, potentially. Okay, that's a potential. And then just as quickly one day, and this might be where things get difficult, she might let that person go because that relationship may no longer serve her. Okay, so that might be where it gets rough sometimes. This is someone who feels powerfully towards humanitarian, who can feel powerfully towards humanitarian missions, and especially with that Sagittarius sun sign. What I was saying earlier about her potentially being an incredible spiritual role model is that she has that humanitarian energy that you would associate with both Sagittarius and Aquarius. Okay, so I would love to see her grow into that particular energy. If she were to take a spiritual path, then I would hope that it wouldn't be as a result of something traumatic happening with that Pluto so close to her Venus. Okay, I'm hoping that she would ideally have a person encourage her along an incredible spiritual path and catalyze her into becoming a person that people are like, wow, you are a real one, and admire her just naturally. She would attract admiration very naturally if she were to lean into this particular birth chart towards her best and her highest good. Okay, that's kind of cool. One other thing is I noticed that Neptune is here in Aquarius in her 11th house. So this is someone who can also be very loving, kind of fun, but also potentially have some issues with boundaries. And especially with that watery energy that we associate with the moon, that's going to make things possibly very emotional for her when she feels like that it is time for a connection with somebody to end. Now this is interesting. Her fans just popped into my mind, and they may occasionally pop into her mind in a way where she doesn't want them to realize who she really is. Now this is interesting because I'm looking at, now Neptune is associated with Pisces, and Pisces is sitting in the 12th house naturally, where it would be with her chart. But Aries is sitting there too. This has to do with some sexual stuff. There may be some things that I did see that there's a possibility. I would need to do research to confirm this for myself. But I saw that there was a possibility of sexual abuse in her past, okay? Outside the family home is what I thought I saw. There may be some other things. And if that didn't actually happen, there are some things that sexually that she enjoys that she doesn't want people to know about, that she feels like would alter people's perception of her, and for good reason. So this is something that she's going to keep below deck, literally and figuratively, okay? But with Pisces, that has a very strong intuitive, compassionate, loving side to it. So that's the positive part, is that there might be some interesting sexual stuff that she enjoys, but there's still that psychic, compassionate, loving tendency that she has there. Now also that Pisces Neptune connection has issues with boundaries, so there might be polyamorous relationships that she has with friends that may tend to rupture. Okay? Allegedly for entertainment purposes only, this may be true of Billie Eilish, or it might not be. It might be true of one of the babies that was born around the same time in the same area as Billie Eilish was, okay? So please take this as it resonates, okay? But she may have issues with like friends with benefits. Like it might be easy to get tangled up in her heart Like she might have like very, very deep friend feelings for a person that feel almost romantic and feel sexual, and all of that kind of blends together with that sextiling energy. And I see also with some of that squaring energy between Pisces and Mars in the 12th house. That's where that taboo sexual stuff potentially comes in. But that squaring off with that Pluto and Sagittarius. And this is where I'm getting into possibly, saw for just a second, sexual strangling in like a BDSM kind of context. There might be a moment where she or somebody that she knows that she might be involved in some way comes kind of close to being in a very dangerous situation in that kind of context. And it helps her wake up and realize her truths, okay? And come to some kind of spiritual awakening. Because again, Pluto's in the house of Sagittarius, all about spiritual awakenings right there. Again, this might not be true of Billie Eilish. It's a really specific scenario, but I got a really specific picture too of somebody like being strangled. Okay, in a kind of a sexual scenario. That's something for her to be cautious and watchful of. There's also the potential that a spiritual path could transform how she understands fighting for what she believes in. With that Aries and Pisces, it might transform how she sees her sexual partners. And it might see if it's like for the best and the highest good. She might get into some positive sex magic with some people that she has a very, very profound sexual romantic friend connection with. Okay? So that could be, if she goes towards her best or highest good, that could elevate every single crumb, every aspect of herself. Her music would be elevated. The way that she existed herself would just be elevated. The people around her would be elevated. And people would also fall away who would no longer serve her when she reached that elevated role, if she chose to take that particular path. And that's where that Uranus in Aquarius in the 11th house of friends and acquaintances and fans and that kind of thing, that's kind of where that makes sense. Is that when she spiritually up levels and takes on the energy of the Judgment Tarot card, chooses to spiritually up-level herself, listen to the universe, call her up to a different existence, a different evolution altogether. She's the kind of person to let go of people even if it's painful for herself, and to let go of possible friends with benefits connections, especially if they didn't serve her any longer. There's more about this particular astrological birth chart. I have hit the highlights, and even that was detailed. There are more details right here. I'm going to move on to some questions that I've got about Billie, and I'm going to be using the White Numen Tarot, and I'm also going to be using the 7th Sphere Lenormand. Love holding these up. They're so cute. I'll be handling those questions here in just a second, okay? Okay, so I have laid out my 7th Sphere Lenormand cards to answer the question, who is Billie Eilish really? I'm wanting to know who she is when it's just her behind closed doors. I've laid her cards out in a 3x3 spread, also known as a portrait spread in Lenormand. So I kind of use a mixture of the French and German Lenormand systems, if that matters to you. If it doesn't, ignore what I just said, okay? So, excuse me. So her central theme is sun, and it lands on the house of tree, which talks to me about a family tree of success. I saw that her parents were already well off and famous when she was born. I also suspect that this is pointing to, in the future, her own children, if she has some, and I suspect that she will. Her own children will be successful too, that they're going to be having their time in the limelight. Now, this is interesting. I asked about who she is really, and that's who she is. That's how she sees herself. Who is she really? She sees herself as a successful person. She does appear in this reading, but not as a woman. She appears in this reading as a child. And this is interesting. I see her very much as the baby of the family. I see her as someone who is probably going to be established in the future, as someone who's kind of naive, because one of her, two of her corner cards is Child and Lily. This has nothing to do, like one particular Lenormand system can talk about Lily in the context of sexual stuff, right? But it also, in another system, talks about Lily and being established. Having, in the sense that you are ready, like you got fuck you money, right? You can take care of yourself. You don't need other people to handle you. She's going to be naive as to how hard it can be for a person to establish themselves, because she just takes fame for granted. This is someone who is kind of naive to how successful her family has been and will likely continue to be. I see potentially that her family is going to grow in power as she ages, right? As she has her own children, her family is going to grow in power. This is something that I did not talk about when I talked about her astrological birth chart. I did not say that we are going through Pluto in Aquarius right now. Pluto in Aquarius started in January of this year, and it's important because the last time the world was in a Pluto in Aquarius transit, we had revolutions all across the planet. Every single culture at the time, the vast majority of cultures at the time, let me put that caveat in, had some kind of major transformation. We had the American Revolution the last time we were in Pluto in Aquarius. We had the French Revolution. We had the Haitian Revolution. We had the Industrial Revolution. We had Beethoven. We had Mozart. I forget his name. Okay, I apologize. But there was one major Japanese artist at the time whose work that we're still viewing to this day. There was a music and art renaissance throughout the world at the time, not just in a few places. So it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, it's a time of great upheaval, it's a time of extremes, of beautiful stuff, but also of wars that kill a number of people, and possibly even unnecessary wars as well. With that being said, during this Pluto in Aquarius transit, because Billie Eilish has Uranus sitting in Aquarius in its home house area of the 11th house, I suspect that the Billie Eilish's family is going to grow in great power over the Pluto in Aquarius period. And they're not going to do it in such a way where they are transparent, okay? This is one of the future cards, and this is how the future column stacks up for me. They're going to operate behind closed doors. They're going to occlude their behavior from the public. And I spoke earlier about Billie Eilish being the kind of person to hide what it is that she does, because Pisces is appearing in its home house sign of the 12th house. The things that are taboo, the secret stuff, but also spiritual stuff if she can live in her best and her highest good. The temptation here is that she doesn't see anything wrong with how her family dynamic operates, secretively and growing in power, so she's going to tend to go along with it. There's the hope that her Saturn return in Gemini would show her the fault in her thinking and her family's thinking. There's also the potential that her Pluto in Sagittarius, and also that Aquarian kind of energy with Uranus and Aquarius together, that's going to awaken some sense of justice in her that would be incredibly hard for her to go through. Pluto is not an easy planet to have in any part of one's astrological birth chart. Even when it's trining or sextiling or having a great relationship with other planets, that's going to make it hard for her to expose her family, especially because on her top row, consciously, she's got child, she's got fox. This is how they're appearing on my particular spread. I'll do it with how it looks for the camera, okay? Actually, excuse me. Like this, okay? I'm trying to arrange things how they should look on my table versus how they look in the monitor, okay? So this is how they look on my table. The child is facing towards the past. This is not someone who grows up very easily, who wants to grow up very easily. She's in a context where she doesn't have to. She's the baby of the family, I feel, okay? When I get into her energy, I get kind of like she might be the middle child for all I know, okay? I don't know that she has younger siblings. I know that she has an older brother. But she gives very much like baby of the family kind of vibes, okay? And I don't think that she's one to progress forward easily. That's not to say that she won't, but she's not someone who progresses forward very easily, I don't think, with this child card facing towards the past. I'm also not thrilled to see child when she's 23 years old as of this particular filming, okay? I was kind of hoping to see the anima or the woman card because that's what I would be expecting to see. Now, she has not hit her Saturn return yet, and once she gets into it, if I still see child card appear, then I'll start to become genuinely concerned. To a certain degree, it's fine-ish if she's in her child energy right now. Her brain has not finished developing. It's not going to stop developing until she's around 24, 25, 26 years old, okay? So in a sense, that makes sense. But on the other hand, there's the risk that she could stay stagnant because she doesn't see anything wrong with how her family operates. There's some stuff that she could end up doing that could be quite self-serving with that Fox card that ends up establishing herself well into the future, but also ends up helping her family continue to establish herself. Her family figures heavily in this particular reading, and I saw in her astrological birth chart that, again, Cancer is in its home house of the fourth house of family, of where you were born, what your home environment was like at the time you were born, when you were small and growing up. Jupiter appeared in that particular area, and that makes sense. Now that I'm looking at the cards, again, astrological birth charts don't determine where a person goes, but they do point out where the tendencies lie. And I see the tendency for her to continue to grow the themes that she acquired in childhood and grow them well into raising her own children, grow them well into her own adulthood, for better and for worse. I don't know why they're hiding stuff either. This is very interesting because this lands on the House of Clouds. This is very secretive stuff. They really don't want people to know about this. They will really not want people to know about this thing in the future. And I said sexual earlier with this particular card. I'm really hoping that I'm wrong, that there isn't some kind of sexual theme around this particular card. I've been talking about how Billie can be a highly sexual, romantic kind of person with friends in addition to romantic partners, and I'm wondering if that isn't going to spill out in some ways that could be harmful, that they don't want people to know about in the future. See, here's the thing. House isn't just about family in a very tightly closed environment. And also, I should say that Sun landing on the House of Tree. That's about the family tree and generations. This is more about the nuclear family in my particular readings, okay? It's also about what goes on behind closed doors, what they don't want people to see going on in the family. It's kind of creepy energy. It's definitely dark, shadow energy. This is someone I'm hoping that Billie has the conditions, the environment in her birth chart to render justice in this particular situation. There's the real risk that she could choose not to, that she could choose to invert that part of her birth chart and ignore it. Whereas someone who was born in the same area around the same time as Billie, very close to the time as she was, might actually do something in their family and say, I'm breaking generational trauma bonds and I'm ending things. The buck stops with me. Billie might choose not to do this. Someone else, like her, with her similar birth chart, may. I'm seeing in the past that Billie quickly became loyal to sudden endings. Ends to eras quickly, and we were talking about that earlier with her Aquarian themes. She's someone who has no problem turning somebody off, ghosting them overnight. And that might have been a deep connection that she felt, again with that moon sitting there. 1 minute she's hot, 1 minute she's cold, and this is someone who takes this ability to cut ties and run as quickly as possible. This is someone who potentially takes loyalty, her own loyalty to others for granted. And potentially, she expects it from others. This is going to be someone who's a very intense romantic partner when she's just hanging out in her energy, not going towards her best or highest good, but not actively doing bad stuff either, right? She's going to just be a generally intense person to be around. Because I wonder if her romantic partners won't be afraid of her just suddenly ending things and it's over, right? Suddenly one day it's intense and the next week it's over and she's on to something else. She's writing a new album, she's writing music, and she's writing about you, right? That can be an unstable energy. And she's learned from an early age that unstable energy when it comes to loyalty to others in that Aquarian house of the 11th house of friendship and social connections and fans, she learned that that's the normal, unfortunately. Let's talk about her present reality with Fox. Let me hold them up for you. Fox, Sun, that's success, but being deeply selfish, and this being a long-term thing that's been going on for a long time and will most likely continue well on into the future. This is past, present, kind of future energy kind of card. It's a long-term energy. It's just kind of potentially floating through life like this, not really thinking why she's in this self-serving kind of mode. She's successful. Why would she think too hard about it? And the thing is, again, she has the energy with that fire and air energy in her chart. She has the ability to think like that, but without too much grounding energy in her birth chart, without someone to balance out all that fire and air energy, it's going to be a whole lot harder for her to have that gravitas, to be able to sit down and think sincerely about, why am I here? What am I doing with myself? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Where am I wanting to take this? Who am I doing all of this for? Once she starts to ask those deeper questions, her birth chart is going to be there to create the environment to encourage her to go deeper. Because she has the potential to be a deep person. And right now with child, she is not in the mindset, as of this current moment, to be a deep person. I see that heading forward into the future as well, unfortunately, because with those future influences with child, sun, and house, I've got my diagonals. Okay, that's how I read future influences. With it pointing towards the future, she's not going to have much motive because I feel like her family's going to protect that. They're going to protect the naivete. They're going to continue to shelter her to a certain degree. They see her as their treasure, as something to put up on the shelf and take back down, to show off to people and then put back up on the shelf. Their pretty little thing on a shelf. It's a shame. She deserves better than this, and her astrological birth chart indicates that she is absolutely tooled, made for better, for deeper, for more. Okay? Something else I'm noting that in her present reality, she's got dog. And again, I'll try to lay it out the way I see it. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, this is towards the past. Here we go. Monitor is working with me. Sorry. Hang on. I've got this. I promise I've got this. Okay. I've laid them out. This is how they look for me. That took too long. Sorry. So, this is someone who doesn't mind chasing success, is loyal to success. And if she has to hide how she acquires that, this is that Pisces, but Mars in Pisces energy in her 12th house. She doesn't mind. She is living in that particular part of her astrological chart. Okay? She doesn't mind chasing down success and being kind of shadowy about it. And that's probably something that she doesn't necessarily want her fans to know, because it would kind of dampen their understanding of her if they knew for real that this was her, that this was who she chooses to be. I feel like she would be she could feel quite guilty about choosing these. She's kind of thoughtlessly going along with what her family does and tells her to do, but she would be ashamed because if people saw it for what it was, because she knows fundamentally that it's wrong, and she wouldn't get that conscience pricks. She wouldn't get those conscience pricks if that wasn't exposed. And as I'm saying exposed, I kind of got this. I looked at this again. There's the real potential that this could be exposed. This isn't just about success. This is also about exposure. People really seeing you and seeing your situation and seeing everything you've done for what it is. There's that potential as well. And I'm going to say potential because this can be powerful too. And I will want you to know that even if someone hides something for a while, it doesn't mean that it's always going to stay hidden. The universe has a way of balancing out the karmic scales when they get out of balance. And this is no different. If the universe needs to wrangle balance back into Billie Eilish's situation, then it will. And it might be in a very public-facing kind of way. We'll see what happens, okay? Now, this is interesting. With the past influences, this is my diagonal pointing towards the past. I've got Lily, I've got Sun, and I've got Scythe. No more sexual endings. Only primal sexual feelings that are very, very destructive for her. So, I'm getting back into that Pluto and Sagittarius kind of feeling together with that kind of, it was that squaring energy. There we go. It was that squaring energy with Pisces in Mars. I'm wondering if there weren't some really aggressive encounters that she had sexually. And I said earlier that I was allowing space for that not to be true, in case that wasn't, but it feels like it was. I see this as an influence in the past, and I want you to know that if Spirit wants us to know it, they will reveal it. If they didn't want us to know these kinds of things, they would keep it hidden from us. The thing is, Billie encountered this in her past, and it has transformed her. And it's made her commitment phobic. I see. She has no problem cutting people off, but at the same time, she's not going to change anything about this either. She's kind of self-serving when it comes to these things. I don't feel like she's healing the wounds that she may have gotten from being assaulted or molested or whatever may have happened. I'm wishing her the very best and most high quality healing journey that she could ever possibly have, that she could dream of, because this is really rough stuff that if she deals with, she will be an incredible role model to a variety of people. Whether she chooses to openly speak about it or not, she will exude that aura of someone who has been through stuff, who has dealt with it in the best way possible, and has settled in who they are, who has accepted their past and has accepted who they are in spite of what's happened. She's not there yet. I feel like she can be quite selfish when it comes to her sexual desires, and it's coming from a place of woundedness. And there's the real risk that she could continue that damage well on into her future, into adulthood. Again, she doesn't see anything wrong with how her family operates. Her success will likely grow, but so will the ability for things to be exposed. Things will be talked about. No more for this particular spread. I want to get into one last question. What does Spirit want Billie to know about her sex/romantic life? Okay, I'm going to pick up these cards and I'll be right back. So I am using the White Numen Tarot to answer this particular question, and I've laid her cards out in a Celtic cross formation. Right away, her central theme is the Chariot, and it's in reverse. This indicates to me that the universe wants her to stop what it is that she's doing. She's going down a path that ultimately isn't good for her, and they're asking her to understand the obstacle is there to keep her from progressing further down this path that isn't good for her. It's not something that should be gone around or navigated or anything like that. Whatever with her sex and romantic life, she's doing something right now that she's building romantic sexual habits right now that ultimately are not going to be good for her. What I was mentioning earlier with her Lenormand spread, in many ways this Celtic cross confirms what her Lenormand spread earlier said with her portrait, with that portrait spread, okay? So right here, stop what it is, turn back around. This isn't the correct path that you need to be going down. And here's the thing, there's the crossing card. This is justice, and it is pointing towards the past. But I should also know that its feet is towards the future. Right now, injustice is happening in Billie's life. Let me move the microphone closer. I just realized that it was far away. I apologize, okay? Right now, injustice is going on. Whether she's causing this, and possibly with that sun sign in Sagittarius, with that ascendant sign in Aries, there's that potential that she could be leading that kind of energy. She could also be a victim of it, okay? The universe is saying what's going on is wrong and that you're accumulating karmic debt that you're going to have to pay down later. And it's going to hurt when you do have to pay down that karmic debt later, because when the scales need to be rebalanced, sometimes that is one of the most painful events that we can go through in this life. She is someone who Pluto is going to kick her ass in a major way, because Sagittarius is associated with the planet of Jupiter. That's an expansive energy. When Pluto gets into action, when karma starts to swing and really take care of things and level the scale, that can hurt for a lot of people. And I saw that, when I did Taylor Swift's reading, I guess one of Billie Eilish's colleagues, so to speak, but I saw with Taylor Swift and also with Billie that when it's time for justice to right the scales, that it's going to be a time of tremendous tears. Okay, so right away, that's the central theme. Stop what it is you're doing. Billie, you're accumulating a whole lot of karmic debt when it comes to the things that you're doing romantically and sexually. Ace of Cups, this is sexual romantic selfishness. What I saw earlier with the Fox card, this is self-serving sexual energy. She is someone who is very childish, who has a very emotional, spiritual immaturity when it comes to sexual and romantic relationships. And it's causing genuine harm from what I can see, because justice wouldn't appear as the challenge card if it wasn't. There's some kind of abuse going on here, genuinely, if justice is showing up here. Here with the Two of Cups. Consciously, she thinks that this is how things go. Once again, family traditions come up from the background and inform how she operates to this day. It's harmful because she thinks that she's being loving. This is upright. She doesn't think that she's doing anything wrong. That's kind of a sad energy. And the other thing is, in her unconscious energy, in her subconscious, she's in deep need of healing and she's not getting it. This is her not trusting the universe. This is her not getting the healing, not like possibly even pushing it away. She may say, I don't deserve this and I don't want it. She's doing what she is because she's acting out of a place of sexual woundedness. She might be doing things wrong right now. That does not mean that she was not a victim in the past. That does not remove the responsibility that she has right now to stop what it is that she's doing, course correct, and do something better towards her best and her highest good, like taking a spiritual path. She needs to be aware that Pluto could kick her ass, truly, especially because she is in this Pluto in Aquarius transit. Anything can happen at this point. Extremes are normal during this time period, okay? So there could be some really crazy stuff that happens over the next 19-ish years when it comes to Billie. This is not someone who's going to go quietly into the behind-the-scenes area in spite of the fact that we got that clouds on clouds energy with her Lenormand spread. She may try to hide, but I don't know that the universe is going to let her hide for long, or her family for that matter. This is in her future. This is the Ten of Wands. It also, note how she's blinded and she's so busy trying to pull those snakes away from her face. Entity. There is no gender in tarot. This entity is so busy pulling snakes away from their face that they're not able to see the path ahead. The path ahead. They can't move. They can't really do anything with their hands. They're busy with all the consequences of their thoughts coming in from the past. This is all the wands loaded into one particular card, and this is in her future. This is a burden that the universe is going to allow her to carry because she will have earned it by that particular point. This is her advice card. The Two of Wands is asking her to daydream, to think, feel her way towards new horizons that have nothing to do with what's going on right here. And also note the fire energy, okay? We're getting back into the fire energy in accordance with her astrological chart. Can she get into that Aries Sagittarius energy, you see, going on in this particular card, and head towards justice for herself, even if that means doing difficult things in terms of exposing her family, such as we saw with that Sun card in her Lenormand spread. That would mean that the burden would be tremendous, but it would be a different kind of burden altogether if she were to start moving towards her best and her highest good. And see, here's her outcome. This is more encouraging. She's called towards this, and I hope that she goes towards this. I seem to recall mentioning the Judgment card earlier in this reading, and here it is. This is the outcome card. This isn't a certainty. Once again, tarot and astrological birth charts are not determinations. People still need to make choices. But this is encouraging news, that she might actually choose to spiritually up-level herself and choose a spiritual path that is towards her best and her highest good. and choosing to take ownership, take responsibility of any damage that she may have done to others while she was acting out of her sexual woundedness, while she was choosing to avoid healing it. I understand that what she went through may have been very traumatizing, and I suspect with that Pluto energy that it was. Nevertheless, she has a responsibility to heal herself, else she poisons other people's lives, and I see that going on right now. She has no business doing damage to others in spite of what it is that she's gone through. Okay? So, let's continue to talk. She is spiritually minded. I feel like she's going to tend to go down a path, as difficult as it may be. I feel she might choose this because this is her current environment. The universe has some really cool blessings for this person if she chooses the path towards her best and her highest good. This is an oracle card associated with the white Numen. This is about all the wonderful blessings that the universe brings to a person in the exact perfect timing. This is great karmic rewards instead of karmic debt. Okay? The universe is saying, we have some really cool stuff for you, Billie, if you choose your best and your highest good. But that's a choice that you have to make. We can create the environment for you to encourage you down that path, but ultimately you must choose to step out of your family's generational trauma and generational traditions that no longer serve y'all's best and highest good. Step out of that, step towards this, and you're going to have dreams come true that you never thought possible. The universe says, watch us. If you choose the spiritual path, watch us do beautiful things that you never thought expected were possible. This is where we kind of possibly end on a sad note, because this is her hopes and her fears. This is the devil, and it's in reverse. She is afraid that she's never going to be able to be free of what happened here with the Ace of Cups, with the star. She doesn't, I feel like I said earlier, I don't deserve this healing. And this is her being her own worst enemy. With the devil and the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, that those two human entities can lift the chains off their neck very easily because they're not manacled. The chains aren't tightly around their necks. They can choose to lift those chains off around them and walk away anytime that they like. But with this in reverse, that indicates to me that they believe that they're stuck, that they can't just lift the chains off. A shift in mindset is going to be key, and I'll bet with that astrological chart, with Uranus in Aquarius in that 11th house, with our very deep connections with that moon in Aquarius in the 11th house, I wonder if there isn't the possibility that she could meet someone who starts her down this path of spiritual transformation, and it changes everything for her. And I hope that would be the case. I hope that would be the case. I feel like she's someone who deserves the best, right? And frankly, like we all do, right? We all deserve our best and our highest good. And I hope that she heads toward it. Right now, let's be honest, she's in some very destructive habits that could be painful for her to work through later on. And if she stops now, it'll be better for her later on, and once she starts to deal with the trauma that she's carried, and also deal with the responsibility of any trauma that she may have placed on others in her sexual and romantic relationships. With that, that is all from me. Thank you for watching to this point. If you did, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching. Take care.